Now that we have an idea of what exactly it is that you ought to be doing according to your unique psychophysical nature or your dharma or your purpose, now let's get a clear idea of your value. Now, when we talk about value, we want to create some type of axiom, some place that we can always come back to. Otherwise, if we're trying to arbitrarily pick numbers like, yeah, this is my value, that's my value, it's like trying to dock a boat on a moving lighthouse. We want to create something that actually just makes logical sense in terms of your value. The way I like to do this, and the way I'm going to encourage you to do this, is let's just be logical and let's actually calculate what the life that we would need to be fully supported would look like and how much that is. Now, the first version of this exercise is just that, is let's look big. What in your dream world would your life look like? And then accordingly, we can figure out how much that costs. And then similarly, we can make a plan to afford that life. You can do various iterations of this. You can make a next step plan, or look at what your current budget is and say, okay, this is my next year plan. But I want you to start with creating, okay, end all be all, what does your life look like in terms of everything that needs to get done, and approximately how much does that cost? Because if we could figure out, okay, it would cost me, I'll just throw out random numbers here. Let's just say for $500,000 a year. You know that you could have everything you could want in your life, and you've calculated it, and the place you want to live in terms of the mortgage on that house, and the kind of car you want to drive, and the type of groceries that you want to get, and the types of places that you want to go, and the type of clothes that you want to wear, etc. Once we have some clear idea of what exactly that is, then we can figure out how much it costs, and then accordingly we can start to move in the direction of that goal. So the place that I would encourage you to start with this exercise is dream big first, and then do a different iteration of this. And you can just make a couple different copies, going up to file, and then make a copy, and then one can be dream income, second one could be next 2-year income or something like that. But primarily, again, what we're looking for in this exercise is to have some type of transparent idea of what you would need to be fully supported. So what is the amount of money you need to be making every single year for you not have to think about bills, you not have to think about anything really? Like, you can just dedicate your full time to serving. Because if we can get your bills covered, money's coming in, and you're no longer thinking about this, that, the other, all that energy and attention that was going to money, we can now actually go into changing people's lives, actually serving people. That's the type of value-based income system that I like to go off of and teach, and that's what we're going to be going over here, is making it make sense. So if you're like, I don't know even where I'd start in terms of how much I need to make, go through this exercise. If you have an idea, write down that number, and then after you go through this exercise, compare it with that number and see what it looks like. So it's going to be fairly simple. You go through, and there's different categories that I have here. So let's start at the first category, which is necessities. Don't worry about this percentage for now. You'll see as you go down. There's some others in blue. I'll explain those in a minute. The necessities section are all the things that have to get done. No matter what happens, these things must get done. And we give you a couple examples here. You can always add a row as well if you wanted to. If there's something that we missed, again, this is just to give you an example. And so put how much would it cost monthly. In some things, it might not be a monthly expense. It can be an annual expense. So you can either put it monthly or annually. You choose, potentially both. Go through, plug it in. So in your dream house, what does your dream house cost to rent if you don't want to own, or what does it cost to own if you do want to own? And go through these. And the reason we're going to start with necessities, well, it's kind of obvious, the necessities, but we want you to ultimately move in a direction where necessities are about 50% of your profit. So the money that comes in, about 50% of that goes to necessities. Now, I don't care if you wind up changing these numbers as you go. You do you. What I'm trying to suggest here is an idea of what we could say is buckets. There's 6 buckets in particular I'm going to suggest for you, that every percentage of every dollar that comes in goes into one of these buckets. Let's just say 5 out of every $10 that goes in goes to necessities. That number can obviously change according to your life situation, but these are general suggestions I have for everyone to follow. 5 out of every $10 that comes in goes towards your necessities. Now, keep in mind, you plug in everything else from your insurance to your transportation, and again, feel free to add any. You just go to the column here, right click, and then you can add a row below if you want to add any for yourself, living expenses, etc., etc. Now when we come to these other expenses, you'll see 50% here. I personally encourage you to put at least 10% into these other 5 essential areas of your life. So some examples of what that looks like is if we're talking about your education, okay? At least 10% of what your money that's coming in towards investing yourself in your education. Like, come on. And then we have our long-term savings. Now, when it comes to your long-term savings, think of this as money that goes somewhere into an account, and maybe it's a long-term savings account. Don't put it in your bank account. Ain't making no money there. Put it into at the very least, you have these high-yielding savings accounts now where you can make 4 to 5% on it just from sitting there. Otherwise, you might be putting it into precious metals and commodities, or you might be putting it into real estate and land, or putting the S&P 500, whatever it is. 10% goes into a place that's your long-term fund. That's just long-term investments. You don't see that money for a long time, if ever. Then also have another 10% for your short-term savings. These are the this is, you need to get a new car, or the car breaks down, or whatever case might be. A chunk of change that's actually very liquid that you can grab at any time towards whatever might happen, whatever life might throw at you. At least have about 10% go into that pot. And then charity. My friends, what's the point of you making any money if you ain't giving back? Need I say more? Why are we here? At least 10%. I like to take care of some cows. Go take care of some cows. Just something. There's a lot of living entities that could use your help. Go help them. Then we have self-care and play. Take care of yourself. Have some fun. This is everything from your personal care to going to, club dues in terms of your fitness or whatever you might want to do, eating out, dining, whatever the case might be, having fun. These are a bunch of different examples here. There's a couple other categories that you might put in other places, but just to give you some examples. So go through these. These are the 6 jars that I suggest. Pretty common. There's a lot of opinions out there, but this is something that I know could work well for almost all of you. Modify the percentages however you so desire. And then also make sure you add any additional business expenses, because most of these are going to be personal expenses that you might be able to write off. And if you're still looking for help in terms of incorporating and getting your business entity and getting connected with an accountant, let me know. We'll connect you with our CPA or someone in our system that's going to take care of all that. But let's also make sure that we're addressing the additional specific business expenses that might be there as well, so that we can figure out how much money you need to be making. Go through this, have some fun. Let this be something that is creative and you can explore and just have fun with this. This is meant to be a lot of fun, and get some clear idea of how much you need to be making every year, every month, and then accordingly we can make a plan of how to figure out how to monetize your passions in such a way that you are living your dream life.